Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, babies in their diapers, welcome to the Tiberius Show with your host, Tiberius Boy.
That's me, Tiberius.
And welcome to the Tiberius Show today. And I'm your host, Tiberius Boy. And as always, looking at various jobs and how they affect the world around us. Today's is going to be very interesting. We're going to talk to a person of 1,000 voices. Have you any idea what someone with 1,000 voices does? Well, I think I do, but hey, let's talk to this guy and find out. Let me introduce our next guest, the one, the only, the amazing Joel Gibbs.
Thank you, my adoring partner. Thank you. And thanks, Tiberius, for having me here today.
Okay, so you are listed as the man of 1,000 voices. Can this one tell us exactly what you do?
Well, first of all, let me clarify that it's actually 783 voices, but marketing is everything. You know what I mean? It doesn't roll off your tongue. The man of 1,000 voices. You can put that on a marquee.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, the point is, yes, I do an awful lot of voices. I do hundreds of celebrity voices, of cartoon voices, of different ages, different accents and dialects, and what have you. And I do these all in a number of projects over the years: radio commercials, TV commercials, animation, digital spots, just everything you can imagine needing something goofy done with a voice. That's my job. I do the goofy stuff.
Okay.
That's me.
So, what sparked your interest in learning to speak in others' voices?
I didn't particularly set out to do this, but when I was 4 or 5 years old, I guess, somewhere around there was a ventriloquist on television in the 1950s, and he was television's most famous ventriloquist for kids and families. The first one on TV. He was the first guy, and it's like most things. Something just attracts you. It just spoke to me, and I started buying hand puppets and marionettes and little ventriloquist figures, dummies, whatever. And all of these things I was collecting, I was assigning a different personality and voice too. So, unbeknownst to where I was going with this, I was sort of training myself to do this sort of thing, but also I think there's just a gazillion things across the span of my life that has to do with mimicry. There is something in me. It's unexplainable. I don't know. Maybe it's weird, but I'm a mimic in many ways. So I just accidentally developed an ear for hearing what I needed to hear to make it come out here.
So did you just wake up and decide you could do this, or how'd you learn it?
I didn't really learn it. It came through practice, doing puppet shows, but the ventriloquism itself, I even as a little kid, I just studied Paul Winchell on television, and then wherever there was a mirror in our house, I would sit in front of the mirror and practice words, practice the alphabet, A, D, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, N, N, P, and things like that. And eventually I figured out a way to very naturally and comfortably have a conversation with myself. When you really think about it, it's a compartmentalization that you kind of don't really know you're doing, and you're doing at the same time, to be able to ostensibly work a dummy or a puppet or whatever the case may be and have a conversation with the character, and yet you're talking to yourself.
Was it developed to make people laugh?
Well, I have to say that those who have known me for any part or all my life know that part of what I do is make people laugh. I enjoy it. I manage to just have a gift somehow for it. And yeah, ventriloquism and dummies especially are it's the typical straight guy, that's me, and then the wise guy or the funny guy, who's the figure. And yeah, for the most part it is meant to make people. I can't think of any ventriloquist that ever made people unhappy, unless he was a bad ventriloquist.
Okay, well, how do you think making different voices helps make the world a better place?
I'd say through the entertainment, through the laughter. I've been very lucky to be able to replicate an awful lot of famous people's voices. I'm also kind of a movie historian too, so there's always so many opportunities to comment. Um, it'd be like going to a car dealer and me asking him, "How did you make out on the deal?" And the guy says, "Well, you know what the Godfather would say." And I would say, I understand. You made him an offer you can't refuse. So when you can do the voices and you can make people laugh and chuckle and
That is
all that, yeah,
hilarious.
that's I'm proud of that. It makes me feel good that people kind of look to me to make them laugh. So I
That was
obey.
Mr. Big from Zootopia, right?
Not exact. Well, in a way, yes, in a way, in a way.
Okay.
You'll as you grow older into your years, you'll discover The Godfather and know why I'm obsessed with it. But that's an entirely
Ah,
other story.
because we've been watching Zootopia in class like 5 different times, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I know that voice.
I actually sat at a critics dinner a few years ago
Uh-huh.
with the director, producer, writers, and animators of Zootopia. We spent an entire evening together in LA. It was really, really nice, sitting next to the Better Call Saul table. So, that was an interesting evening.
Nice. So, how long does it usually take to learn a whole new voice?
There's really no time on it. And there's to be honest with you, I don't think there's for me, there's no learning of it. It's like I the voices that I do are the ones that I hear and can translate right to my vocal cords for some unknown reason. Now, there are times where over time you get better at doing the voice the more that you have occasion to do it. But there's um, no timeline. It just happens or it doesn't happen, you know. But it's happened an awful lot of times, fortunately for me. I've been lucky there's a gazillion announcers, male voiceovers out there
Mm-hmm.
who are all talented in their own way. I was accidentally lucky enough to be able to carve out a niche in this world, uh, to be able to do characters and celebrities,
Mm, okay.
things like that. So I've been lucky, in that way that I've been able to do that.
Interesting. So, what's the best part about speaking in others' voices?
In actually inhabiting them, I can tell you while I'm doing it, I don't know if I'm thinking about it, but talking about it here, I'm pretty sure I am doing it. That I become these characters, not just vocally, but physically, or even emotionally, or whatever. Because I guess if you asked a Robert De Niro, how do you play this character and this character and this character, it's
Mm-hmm.
all about pretending. That I mean, you can be schooled in so many different ways and learn things, but acting, and what I do is largely vocal acting, is just really pretending. And whoever's a good pretender, you know, whoever was the best cowboy or cop when you were playing got to play the cop, and whoever was the best bad guy got to play the bad guy when you
Okay.
were, playing games when you're kids and stuff like that. Everybody assumes a role. So that is the most fun for me. I all of a sudden almost visualize myself as the character. And when I'm recording sometimes a radio commercial where I'm doing two or three voices, I'm switching. Record this voice as this character. Now switch, do the next line as this character. Now do the next line. So I think I need to be medicated. But anyway, no,
That's
I'm
hilarious. You should do YouTube sponsors. That would make you in some money. But here seems like a good time to take a quick commercial break. Let's hear a word from our sponsors.
Aw, Dad, my computer's slow again and I can't play my games.
Call Your Computer Solutions today, and we will scan for viruses and clean that computer up remotely and make it fast again. Our phone number is 407-826-0810.
Thanks, Dad, my computer's fast again. Now I can do my homework. Thanks for calling Your Computer Solutions at 407-826-0810.
And we are back here talking with Joel Gibbs. Joel is the man of 1,000 voices. Are there many challenges in doing so many voices? And how do you keep them all straight?
Well, no, I don't there's no challenge doing a voice that I can do, you know. And I keep them all straight. Just hey, listen, when I call a client and I haven't recorded something yet, but I want to give them a feel for what it's going to sound like when it's recorded. I let them know it'll be much more polished.
Mm-hmm.
I'll read something and go back and forth as I'm reading live and just switch off, and it almost sounds like it's a conversation. It's like the same conversation when I'm using a ventriloquist dummy, except I'm moving my lips. That's makes it different. But yeah, you keep it straight by just envisioning it all. It's like, yo, Mick, I think it's getting kind of sweaty in the gym here. You know what I'm saying? Hey, Rocky, just leave me alone, will you? Stop bugging me. It's just, in some way, it may be an offshoot of the ventriloquism, being able to kind of switch back and forth.
Mm.
I think I can do it faster without moving my lips, but whatever.
Well, what's your most challenging voice or impression that you've had to master? And how'd you do it?
Oh, wow. To think about that. I think I remember back in the 90s when Bill Clinton was president, and I haven't been able to do all the presidents. I've done a lot of them, at least a half a dozen or so, but he was president for 2 terms, and it was sort of expected of me to somehow be able to, goof on him a little bit, or, put him in a commercial. And I didn't quite. There turned out to be a rasp in his voice that I really couldn't get just at first, but then I finally got it. See, it wasn't coming out right, and then finally took me like 6-8 months or something to finally listen to it and understand, and just kind of picture the president talking to Hillary, whatever. So, yeah, I remember that took a little time to kind of figure out. Most everything else just from the mimicry thing. It just happens. That's my. I can't throw a football, 60 yards down the field, but this goofy stuff, Patrick Mahomes can't do that. So hey, whatever.
Well, have you ever done voices for special events or charities to help raise awareness for a cause?
Oh yeah, sure. Most recently, there was in New Jersey. some public service announcements that I use some celebrity voices for to attract people to an oyster eating contest, actually, that benefited the charity.
Nice.
So we recorded a commercial as if it was a red carpet event, and this one walked the carpet, and this one will talk to them, and this one is, and I was all the this ones, and so yeah, I've done a lot of that for organizations and charity, which I've been doing since I'm a little kid, which I enjoy quite a bit.
Okay. Well, how do you decide on the best voice to match a specific project?
Well, I've I'm a guy that people go to when they want a parody of, let's see, movies or TV shows or things like that. So the voices become fairly obvious as to who you're going to do. But then there are a lot of other commercials where I'm searching for an idea. It's the idea first. What's going to be ear catching to people when they listen to it on the radio or on their phone or you know
Okay.
whatever the service may be, and then from there invent kind of the character voices, not so much celebrity impersonations,
Okay.
but character voices that I always insist, and it, again, a source of pride because of the very nice kind words that have been said about my work, but I insist on all the voices that I do, and there could be three, four, five, six of them in some commercials, all sounding distinctly different. That's the fun for me. So that nobody can go listen to this and go, boy, this guy does a lot of voices. I don't want them concentrating on that. I
Yeah.
just the stuff that I do that I've been successful with, I didn't coin the phrase, but it's often known as theater of the mind. So if I can get you visualizing what's happening in just what you're hearing, then I've engaged you that much more. So the more distinct or different, the voices are from each other, makes it sound like there's some conversation or something's going on at this red carpet or this
Well,
party or
yeah.
the sales meeting or whatever it
So,
is.
what was your favorite part of the creative process when working on a new voice?
Just making it come. Again, I never really worked on creating a new voice, but the satisfaction of realizing I can pull it off, and then being able to use it, um, well, professionally and socially, uh, that's a big kick. Again, it's all that part of making people laugh, and the worst thing you can do, well, in my business, my opinion, is do especially a celebrity or a impersonation voice badly. You can do a voice. You can do a voice that is actually a pretty good approximation of it if you add in some body language into it. That kind of excuses it a little bit because that says, okay,
Mm.
all right, you may not have the perfect voice, but you get it. There's a got it factor there. So that can be enjoyable, and it's
Well,
not a contest. We just want to entertain
well,
people.
yeah. Can you do anyone's voice, like me or my dad's?
No, I'm afraid not.
Oh.
First of all, I'd have to hear it quite a bit to approximate it,
Well, you can watch some of
and
my shows.
yeah. You got me there. Um, yeah, I'd have to be able to approximate it, and I think one of the newer voices that I started doing was because this guy is always there in so many movies and so many TV shows, and there became a real
Mm.
actual need. And I've done tons of commercials doing. I don't know if you're familiar with the actor Sam Elliott. He's tall, he's sort of Texan, he's got a bushy mustache, and he's the guy who basically talks something like this with that baritone kind of drawl. And people really like his voice. So I started being able to do it. So, it's like it's just magic fairy dust that just comes sprinkling down, and all of a sudden I would say I don't do all that many new voices anymore. I've got like a giant stable of stuff I've done all my life. But until or unless I hear it's like I can do the most important James Bond, but I can't do Roger Moore or Pierce Brosnan or whatever. And for my clients, all they care about is if I can do Sean Connery, the original Bond. So it's like, oh, okay, I was lucky on that one. And Mr. Bond has been a lucrative voice for me. It's done well, as many others have. Many others.
Nice. So, what's the most misunderstood part about your business?
Um, I think that comes more from the production end, because what you're not seeing in front, what I'm seeing in front of me is an entire recording studio. I'm facing that. And I think a lot of clients think, I keep thinking of a scene in the movie The Original Odd Couple with Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau, and they get into an argument about, one of the guys is a slob, the other's a neatnik, and the slob is having the neatnik do all the cooking, and and he doesn't understand, where's the gravy? Doesn't gravy just come? Doesn't it just Gravy just comes? And he's, you idiot, gravy doesn't just come. It has to be anyway. My analogy is that it's like, oh, a 60-second script. It should only take you at best 90 seconds to make the commercial. And it's like, wait, no, there's a lot more to that. There's recording levels, and there's tech, and there's mixers, and there's microphones, and there's editing,
Yeah.
and there's this, and there's the writing of the copy, and so forth. So I think a lot of clients just don't understand the amount of work that is put into this
Okay.
process.
Well, what's the craziest thing that has happened while you're doing your passion?
The craziest thing. Oh man. I I I don't know if I would say this is the craziest, but I always remember this story as something that was a ton of fun, and at the same time made me feel terrible that it was going on. I walked into a sales office and met a friend of mine who knows me and knows I do all the voices, and he said, "Listen, I need you. I need you to do something for me. A friend of mine, as I am a Beatles freak, um, he said my friend is a Beatles freak, and I know you do John and Paul's voice.
Oh.
Well, John is obviously not with us, but he said, can you call him as McCartney?" And he was trying to play a prank on him. And I figured, well, okay, have a little fun for 10, 15, 20 seconds. And then, hands up, here's who I am. So I got on the phone with him and I started talking with him. And, I told him I was Paul, and he believed it. And we sort of went on and on about playing the bass and the Beatles songs and so forth and so forth. But he got into a real technical sort of thing and how I tuned the bass, and we were on the phone for like 20 minutes. And I stayed in character. And as I was having fun portraying, it was breaking my heart that this guy fully, totally, 110% believed that he was talking to Mecca.
Oh my god.
And
Wow.
I don't remember exactly how it was like, okay, Because I couldn't bear the idea of saying hi. My name is actually Joel, so I sort of take care, let it be, all right, get back, that, and handed it to my buddy who spilled the beans, and I just walked away from the phone because I didn't want to hear who knows the kind of language that his buddy was being used after being pranked like that. So that was it. That was kind of a crazy thing. It was fun.
That's hilarious. Yeah. Well, what was the best advice you've ever received? Who gave you that advice?
Best advice I'd ever received. It's probably the advice advice I've ever received is advice that I've heard thousands of times, and yet I'm only starting, I think, to get around to following it. It's what my wife has said to me 1,000 times. Listen, stop talking. Listen. But for a guy who makes a living talking, what am I supposed to do? Whatever.
You can't really do that. Well, what message do you want to tell children all over the world doing the work that you do?
Well, I hope there are kids and people out there watching this that are intrigued by this idea because for all you know, you have the talent, you have the ability. I was 4 or 5 years old and didn't know that by the time I was 6, I'd be a fairly accomplished ventriloquist, and then the voices, and it would turn into this and this. But I will tell you, explore it. Have some fun. Buy some hand puppets. Do some skits. Make stuff up. It doesn't matter
Okay.
what you do. It doesn't matter if it's funny. And see if you can get into the groove. Because one thing I can tell you is um, I've loved every second of my job or what I do. The many things that I do. This is not the only thing, but there's everything I do. I've loved. I've never
Mm.
woken up and I've never gotten out of bed and said, "Oh, I gotta go to my job." So I've been lucky with that.
Well, on that note, let's take a quick break to pay some bills. And we are back here with Joel Gibbs, the man of 1,000 voices. And at what age level do you think you should learn to do this type of work? Like, is it safe for kids to learn about and get into?
Are you talking about doing voice work or the puppet stuff or what specifically are
The
you
voices.
there's you know what? There's no age that's early or late enough to do this. I sometimes come across YouTube videos and I see 3, 4-year-olds sitting at a drum kit and they're playing like Neil Peart from Rush. And like Ginger Baker and Ringo, and it's like what? How could somebody that young be have that talent? And you've seen these videos, these prodigies who are 3 or 4 years old playing Mozart on the piano or some
Oh,
really
yeah.
heavy distortion guitar, and it's fascinating to me because I can relate to it. I think that's part of it. But on the other hand, you're never too old to do this. I mean, these days through the web and a lot of digital services and AI and whatever, there's a lot of people going on some of these sites and for $10 or $15 doing a little script and whatever, which is fine. A budget is a budget, and you find who you find. But these are people who are total grown adults that get some tech into their house and they go, somebody told me I have a really good voice, I should do this. So it doesn't matter what the age is because it's not an age
Yeah.
related kind of thing.
Well, if you could use your voices to meet and talk to any historical figure, who would it be?
A historical figure. Oh, Mel Blanc. Are you familiar with Mel Blanc?
No.
All right. Mel Blanc is officially the world's man of 1,000 voices. Mel Blanc is the guy who, back starting in the late 30s and into the 40s and 50s, was the guy who provided pretty much all of the voices for the Warner Brothers cartoon characters. Bugs Bunny, Porky Pig, Elmer Fudd, Tweety, Sylvester, Foghorn Leghorn, on every single solitary one. He did all the voices. He did a lot of TV work, a lot of radio work, but to voiceover artists, he is considered the we're not worthy, we're not worthy. Um, I sadly never got a chance to meet
Huh.
him before his demise, but I did get to meet my number one idol and essentially the seed of my entire existence. Everything we're talking about today all came from that gentleman who I mentioned at the top of the show, Paul Winchell. And when I got to meet with him, that was I've met a lot of I've met and worked with a lot of very famous people, thrilled to do it. But this is the guy. This is the guy who was responsible for the ripple effect of my entire life in a number of directions, not just as a ventriloquist, as a voice artist, as an actor, as a director. So many things that I owe him, and I did get to spend an afternoon with him about 7 months before he passed away. So my timing was much better. So I've met a lot of people from history, but if you're talking about people who are gone, that would be Mel Blanc. Definitely Mel Blanc.
Okay. What was that one thing that happened in your career that you did not expect?
That I did not expect. Um, I think, gee, that's I never really thought about that. You get if you're not, yeah, if you're talking about the breadth of my entire career, um, for sure, the one thing that I've experienced that I never thought in a gazillion years I'd ever experience was not only meeting two gentlemen, but having one of them actually talk and talk and talk, someone not known for talking, and the other one bear hugging me and giving me a little kiss on the side of my neck. Those people are Al Pacino and Robert De Niro. And that happened at the same time on the same night about 4 years ago. And when you're talking about someone like myself who is a fanatic for both of them, period, let alone for the fact that The Godfather one and two are tied at number one on the list, and I can do Godfather karaoke. You can turn the sound down for 6 hours, and I can do every word, every line. So to meet these two on a social type of occasion and to have Al Pacino give me a bear hug and give me a kiss, and Robert De Niro, who is not known for being a conversationalist, was
Huh.
gabbing away with me. And this all took place inside about 10 minutes, I would say. That was that was huge. And speaking of The Godfather, a few years before that, chilling with James Caan, Sonny Corleone, in a golf cart. in Florida for about 45 minutes. So that was some pretty unexpected stuff. But
Huh.
so many other people that I have met that are well known were all unexpected because I didn't know I was going to be working with them, and then I was. So I think those were the unexpected things. You meet
Okay.
your idols. You meet the people you admire. That's a special thing.
Well, what was the biggest mistake that you've ever made? How did it change you as a person?
Biggest mistake I ever made. Um, I don't know if it changed me as a person. The biggest mistake I ever made was not taking my own 17-year-old advice. I mean, meaning I was 17 years old at the time. Not taking my own instincts and advice and rolling off into a school that was going to serve my uh, production needs. I already was a performer, and I wanted to learn more about film and production and editing. And one of my parents was deeply unsupportive of that, and made me change my schooling course. But inevitably, I broke through and eventually made my way into the kinds of things I was meant to do. So that was the biggest mistake. Not, but then
Okay.
again, if I had done that, who knows if you and I would be sitting here talking today? You
Who
just don't know.
knows?
So fate is fate. That's the way that goes.
So, do you play video games? And if you do, what is your favorite one?
I haven't played a video game since Atari and a touch of what was that called? Not in television. Um, the Not Xbox before that, Nintendo. When my kids were little, and we were doing Frogger and all the Pac-Man and all that original stuff, but I just I don't have interest really in
Huh.
video games, but I am intrigued by when if they've got it right now or when they get it right, throwing on a pair of those Apple Vision
Oh,
glasses.
nice. Apple Vision
So if I'm
Pros.
going to play a game, then put me in Jurassic Park and let the dinosaurs try to eat me. And I'll be running around a room with a USB cable. Just whatever.
Well, what's your favorite book to read?
Favorite book. Um, I mostly read for decades nonfiction about the entertainment industry. This is what movies, film, television, music, whatever. So I read a lot of oral histories, a lot of behind the scenes books. But one of my favorites of those books is by a an author who is very well known for doing books about the movies. His name is Peter Biskind, and the book's called Easy Riders, Raging Bulls, basically about the whole 70s revolution of films, like late 60s, 70s revolution films that went from Bonnie and Clyde and The
Mm,
Graduate to The Godfather and The Exorcist and so forth and so forth, and all these
okay.
endlessly a decade of magnificent films that gave way to more movies that are like video
Mm,
games.
interesting.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. I like a good Star Wars movie every once in a while, but am I going to go see Halo? No. No, I don't think so. No, thank you.
Well, now, can you tell me that one story? Remember, this is a kid's show. The one story, well, that you're not supposed to tell me about. Come on, you can tell me.
That I'm not supposed to tell. You mean when I was a kid?
This can be an embarrassing story or just something no one knows
An
about you.
embarrassing story. Well, I remember. I'll have to clean this up a little bit. When I was probably about 5 years old, um, my father, my father and I had a great relationship, and he was teaching me some words in another language.
Mm.
Um, and these words were not they were relatively off color words, uh, words that would describe, yeah, bad language and people's, let's say, body parts and things like that. And he took me into a men's store,
Oh
and the
goodness.
guys who worked in the men's store knew that I spoke this language, that a number of their customers also spoke. And a woman walked in, and let's just say she had quite an ample figure. How's that? We'll keep this. She she was built rock solid.
Oh gosh.
Let's just say that. And
Okay.
I looked over at her, and in Italian, I said, Mamma mia, and the word for an ample body part. Um, but the salespeople knew that as soon as I saw her, I would say it. They weren't prepared. And my father and two salespeople went to my mouth and muffled me before I could blurt it out. So that was kind of a nutty kid story. That and being chased by another parent for saying something not particularly nice, and locking myself in a bathroom and ending up with a high-heeled shoe mark right through the door. Okay, but that aside,
Well, is there anything else you think my listeners should know about you?
uh, I don't know. I don't know. It's a long time ago. What do I
Well,
know?
do you have a Facebook or website for my listeners who want to follow you?
Yes, I do. The website for all this nonsense is Voices by Joel, all one word, voicesbyjoel.com. And that's a place where people can find out a whole mess of this silly stuff. Voicesbyjoel.com. Thank you.
Well, what is that one question that you think I forgot to ask you?
The I love that question. Oh, you didn't ask me actually to do any a voice,
Ah,
or to grab Jerry back here, or any, that's the question. There you go. How's that?
hmm. Well, can you do some voices for us?
Well, I can do some voices for you. And I know I have to try. I have to try to keep this on the younger side, but I'll do this for everybody in the family. One moment I could be Arnold in telling you that I'll be back. And of course, I've done the Godfather for you. And I was talking about doing Bond, James Bond. Let's really not forget Dr. Evil, really. I hope you get 1 million listeners all the time. Yeah, baby. Behave. Behave. Uh, and I had a feeling once I got to Dr. Evil and Austin Powers that
Yeah,
I that would elicit a reaction. Yes.
that was good. Well, thank you, Joel, for being my special guest. Can you stick around for Math Corners?
I'll stick around.
Tiberius' favorite subject. It's Math Corner.
And thank you, Joel, for helping me with Math Corners. This week, we are going to do more multi-step word problems. My dad is always going to find new problems for me to solve.
All right.
Today, we're going to talk about voices.
Dun dun dun.
Imagine the man of 1,000 voices hosting a radio show. In a special extended edition of his radio show, the man of 1,000 voices mesmerizes his audience by performing a varied set of 100 voices every 45 minutes. If the extended show lasts for 2 hours and 15 minutes, how many voices will the man of 1,000 voices have performed in total?
1 million.
Well, first, this is a real world problem because, well, people love different funny voices of characters. So to solve this, first, convert the total time to minutes. 2 hours and 15 minutes is equivalent to 2 times 60 plus 15, which is 135. Now multiply the number of voices performed by 45 minutes, which is 100. So by the total number of 45-minute intervals, an extended show of, 135 divided by 45, which is 3. Therefore, during the extended 2 hour and 15 minutes radio show, the man of 1,000 voices will captivate his audience by performing a total of 300 different voices, showcasing his extraordinary vocal range and talent.
My pleasure. Should we start now from 300 and go up to 1? We start now.
So, Joel, did you ever have to figure out some crazy math questions like this when you were in school?
I was a good student, but I somehow managed to never do one bit of algebra homework or anything in geometry. I must have, I'm a bit of a con artist too. I had no aptitude at all, or probably interest also in like math and science. Now I know a fairly decent amount about both now at this age, but as a kid, I was much more interested in like the like English and social studies, history. It was all about stories. I was always a story lover and a storyteller. So all of that math, whatever, I think I would have been able to do your problem here in Math Corners today without using my toes or all my fingers. But no, I have no recollection of math in general from school at all.
Well, my teacher said that I would use math every day. How do you use math with your work?
True. With my work, I would say, math is used obviously a lot when you have when you're doing, let's say, a radio commercial or a TV commercial and timing. So you have all that sort of precise timing where you're using numbers. But I also use math in when a client sends me a suggested script for something that's 30 seconds. Now, in the voiceover world, we know that the roundish number of words in a 30-second, and it depends on how fast you're talking, it depends, but the average amount of words is 75 in 30 seconds, 150 in a minute. So, fine. I got a 60-second script sent to me last week that was 373 words. For a 60-second.
No, and let's get like Porky Pig.
This is not going to work. So that's where I do the math and say 373 minus 566. Cut this down. Thank you. There's not so much math, but there are a lot of numbers. And a lot of dials and a lot of switches and levels and percentages in your compressor and that sort of thing. But
did I just hear a Discord notification?
I'm sorry?
Did I just hear a Discord notification?
Oh, well, no, I just said that with a compressor, you're putting up numbers and
Okay, I'm getting off
but
track, but thank you
whatever.
so much, Joel, for
No
your help
math.
with math
No,
corners.
my pleasure. I'm sure I was of no help at all.
Oh, you were some help. And now it's time for the heart of a lion. As you know, we talk about the qualities of living by the heart of a lion, which stands for leadership, integrity, obedience, and nobility. This week, we're going to talk about nobility. For me, I think nobility is remembering we are God's special possessions and acting in a noble way, showing courage and honor. The qualities of nobility are goodness, virtue, honor, generosity, and selflessness. During a lively recess at the Christ School, an unexpected incident unfolded as Enzo stumbled on the playground. Without hesitation, his classmates, led by the compassionate Kira, quickly rallied around him. In a spontaneous and thoughtful move, they formed a protective circle, offering their jackets and backpacks to create a cozy space for Enzo. Together, they supported and comforted him as they carefully walked to the nurse's office, showcasing not only their close bonds, but also their instinctive care for one another. This heartwarming response underscored the community spirit at the Christ School, where kindness and solidarity, as demonstrated by Kira and her peers, are woven into the fabric of everyday interactions. So, Joel, did you see your stability at all this week?
I saw a segment on CBS Sunday Morning that really sparked my interest and really made me feel good about what this young man was doing. It would seem, I can't remember where this is happening, but I know this young man was 14 years old and he had raised his father is in, I think, in a financial sector, money management, something financially oriented. And he raised enough funds to buy a small bus and have it outfitted with, I don't know, maybe a half a dozen laptops. And the purpose of the bus is to teach children about finance. Not the stock market
Huh.
so much or whatever, but it was about kids, maybe 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever, and they come on the bus, and he's so smart, and he has such great um, bedside manner, so to speak. And these kids are learning how what a check is, how to write a check, what is a credit card, what does it mean, what does it do? All these, it's like a life lesson
Huh.
for small children in finance. And this young man raised the money to put together a just an amazing physical entity to go from school to park to this to
Wow.
that. And I just thought that was not only interesting and meaningful, but
But,
I think it was very noble. It was
yeah.
a really you could just see the sincerity and the nobility pouring out of his personality and his desire to just be decent and help people, find a way to help people.
That is one of the best nobility stories that I've ever heard.
Hmm.
Honestly.
Yeah,
But
very
of
cool.
all of the Heart of Lion virtues, which is the one that you see the most?
Um, I guess it's really a combination of all of it. To be honest with you, that's the recipe. I
That's
mean,
why
it
it's so
all
good.
it boils down uh, goodness, virtue, honor, generosity, selflessness. It's secular. It's about being decent, about being good and kind to one another. Um, it worries me that there are so many people in the world who by their nature can't find that and get that to the surface because it's really all it takes, just being decent to each other, and the rest, will kind of follow.
We should always try to be lion strong in everything we do, shouldn't
Yeah,
we?
absolutely. Just move forward, keep moving forward. Life's gonna always put, speed bumps in front of you, and the trick is it's just a speed bump. It's not a wall. So just keep carefully going over the speed bumps and keep moving forward. That's what you got to do.
Okay. And that's our show, folks. I want to thank the one, the only, the amazing Joel Gibbs for being on my show. It has been so much fun talking with you today. I think we learned a lot about your career as the man of 1,000 voices.
Well, I've had a terrific time with you, Tiberius. I had heard a lot about you, and when your dad contacted me and said, "What do you think?" and I said, "Yeah, let's do this. Let's have some fun." And we did have some fun, and we had some laughs. And for your viewers and listeners, if you'd like more information about the crazy stuff I do, you can go to the website, which is voicesbyjoel.com.
Also, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at The Tiberius Show. And I would like to thank WWPR 1490 AM, KN98, Soul Radio 24/7, Easy Way TV, and all the other stations that air my show. Please be sure to visit The Tiberius Show on YouTube and hit that subscribe button. Joel, are you subscribed yet?
I'm hitting the button now.
Okay.
Done.
Be sure to leave me a comment if you want to work with different voices. I answer all the comments myself. Also, be sure to listen to us next on the Tiberius Show with your host, Tiberius Boy. That's a wrap.